And we're live once again on another Tuesday, and I have a guest in the house today who's on this side of the pond. So we have JoAnne Funch, who's coming to us from St. Paul, Minnesota, right?
Yep.
Woohoo! Woohoo! So welcome to the show. And just for anybody who doesn't know you, could you just briefly tell us who you are and what you do, and then we'll get stuck in with our topic today.
Sure. Sounds good, Jillian. Thanks for having me. I help professionals become seen on LinkedIn so their prospects find them and not their competitors. That's the easiest way. I've been a LinkedIn marketing strategist since 2008. So I've been around a long time in this space, and I just love relationship building. I know it works. I've built an entire business on just people I know and nurture relationships with. So
absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, welcome. And today we're talking about relationship building in the digital age. And it's kind of fun because it's like, you and I were probably somewhat in the same age bracket. So relationship, we know what it's like to be before the digital age and in the digital age. And it's really good because there's etiquette. There's many different things that come with relationship building, and relationship building is business, professional, personal. So there's a lot to it. And one of the things that we were talking about just before we hit the live button today, we were talking about how many new things are coming to LinkedIn. So many new features, like it's almost hard to wrap your head around it. And yet you said a really profound thing in that are these tools, what you're doing with your relationship building, is it in line with your business goals? So do you want to just sort of elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, Jillian, I think we all can get sucked down the rabbit hole of social media in general. And people who are using LinkedIn actively understand the value of building the relationships to drive some sort of an outcome. So people are on LinkedIn to do business. And I think that makes it a different space, number one. But with that said, I still think you have to always be aligning your goals, because what are you doing there? Are you just wasting time, or are you really aligning every interaction with whatever your goals are, whether it's brand awareness or prospecting, right?
Exactly. And it's so true, because I know so many people, they'll say, I got on LinkedIn, I built this huge network, and we're going to talk about, is it really a network, or is it a not work? Is it just a database? Is it a database? And that was something I found very, very profound going through your content, that people make the mistake of, oh, I have 40,000 followers, but if they're not, well, you go with that one. What's the difference between a network that's working for you as opposed to a database?
Well, I use that term database because I think it reminds me of the old Rolodex days, or the days when you would just have reams and reams of notebooks with contacts or business cards, right? That's collecting, to me, a database. That's very different than building a network. They're two very different things. And I think building a network really should align around your goals. So, who might be an influencer to you? Who might be a good referral partner? Identify who are your prospects? Who do you want to get in front of day to day? So to me, your activities really should be built around how you want to influence a network.
I love it. And then that gives you the decision marker about who you should connect with and who you should let into your network, because I'm not a LinkedIn lion. I don't just go, yes, 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 yes.
No, I don't either.
No.
In fact, I had someone who connected with me about a week ago, and I noticed, you and I are probably those people that look at everybody's profile, and she had 28,000 connections. And I said, how is it that you are able to manage a network of this size? Because that's always curious to me.
Right.
And she responded and said, oh, it's fairly easy. I'm not buying that, because I don't know how I would do that. So I feel what's happening out there is people have got the notion in their head that if they have more people, when they post something, it's going to reach more people. Well, I get that. But I can tell you for a fact, I get more business from having a smaller network of really valued connections.
Yes. Yes.
I don't need 28,000 people in my network to align with my goals. So I just say this because I'm not judging other people, but again, it goes back to your question, database versus really having a network of valued connections.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think when you look at your LinkedIn connections as a database, you're doing things like not permission-based marketing. Like, I'm amazed at the number of people that just stick me on their newsletter.
Me
It's
too.
like, I didn't sign up for this. And it's, or they're telling me I need to redo my website, and I need this and I need that. And you just kind of get really frustrated, because it's like, I thought we were going to have a relationship here, but it feels like you're just shoving your stuff down my throat. And I don't care for that. I don't care for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And, that isn't really building trust.
No.
And trust, is really the most important factor in really driving business, is someone needs to trust you.
Exactly. Exactly. I
So
love
how do you
that.
build that trust within that network?
I love that. I love that. So I remember I read something on one of your featured items, and you talked about the goal is, once you get to know somebody, like what do you do after you connect? Because I think a lot of us, we connect with people and we kind of say thank you, and then that's it.
Yeah.
So what's your strategy for that?
Yeah, so I don't do that. I actually am willing to invest time in getting to know people who want to connect with me. And I take the time to read their profile. I look for something I can open the conversation on. I look for something that I can ask them a question about. And I try to take the conversation 2 or 3 steps beyond just accepting the invitation, because what has that done?
Right.
And I just believe, Gillian, that relationships lead to conversations, and conversations lead to opportunities. And if you're not willing to have a conversation, how do you know there's no opportunity?
Right.
So I'm willing to invest that time in starting to get to know people. Does that mean everybody's aligns with my goals? No, but I also come from the perspective of what kind of goes around comes around. I mean, if I can help somebody else, reach their goals by maybe introducing them to somebody in my network, I think that's what networking and relationship building is supposed to be about.
I agree.
Not just collecting names.
I agree. And it kind of attests to why you actually want to have a manageable network, because how can you make introductions to people you don't know? It's like, it's absolutely impossible. You can say, well, I'm connected to this person, but we've never had a conversation, so I don't really know them. So I don't really know how that would serve us.
Yeah, I mean, we all have some of those in our network for sure, right? We all do. But I think if your endeavor to learn more about people and find out if the relationship is in fact worth nurturing, you know, that's how one begins relationships with anybody, right?
True. So can I ask you for some of your tips for if I connect with somebody and I want to get into a relationship with them and I'm having a conversation in the DMs and now I say, maybe this is time for us to have a chat, either Zoom's more comfortable for me, but you can do telephone or Zoom or whatever. And even now all these sort of LinkedIn, like not the LinkedIn audio events, but just a LinkedIn meeting. That's actually quite a nice little place to meet people, and it's all within LinkedIn. But sometimes I think people are nervous about, how do you keep it short? Because, we all have, X amount of hours in the day. So we don't want to meet for an hour because if we were to do that, it's awful. You'd never get your work done. So how do you keep it short? Because I think you meet people sometimes for maybe about 15 minutes or something.
Yeah.
And what do you talk about? What's your agenda when you meet with people like that?
Well, first of all, I limit my meetings to 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay.
When I suggest to somebody, and ask them if they'd like to jump on a quick Zoom, I always send a link to my calendar, because all of this back and forth stuff just becomes annoying. People are busy.
Yes.
So, that's one thing that I would recommend to everybody is always send a link to your calendar and then always tell them it's only 20 minutes or 15.
Okay. Right. Right.
And then set the expectation ahead of time. So what I do is I obviously will read their profile. Maybe there's something of curiosity to me in their profile. And so I mention that. I see that you sit on the board at such and such an organization. I have a real passion for the similar organization. I'd love to hear more about it. Would you have 20 minutes?
I love that.
The thing is, and then if someone does jump on a call, you want to make sure you honor that. I step right up and I'll say, listen, Gillian, our 20 minutes is up. I really appreciate your time. If you'd like to have another call in the future, let's schedule another time. And people, when you are respectful of someone else's time, they appreciate that.
I agree. That's good. That's good. Because I know sometimes that can be like a slippery slope and you're like, oh, now it's 45 minutes. It's like really gone on. Yeah. And maybe it's because the expectation's not always set up front exactly what we're doing. So we feel like we're dancing around and never really getting to what we said we were going to talk about.
Right. So I think anytime you ask for a conversation, whether it's a Zoom or a phone call, I usually invite people to either one. What do you prefer? And then I always set that expectation. I'd like to learn more. I'd like to hear more about your work in this. I'm very specific, because when you put yourself in the other person's shoes, I've gotten emails, and you probably have, that said, hey, JoAnne, I'd love to jump on a call with you. And that's it. I'm like,
what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? So if you don't want to be ignored, number one, and number two, if you want to make a great first impression, you do the tips that I just mentioned.
I love it. That's great. And then do you use any kind of thing to like follow up, like for your own record keeping? Like you just talked about using a calendar. I use Schedule Once. A lot of people like Calendly. Some people just use Google Calendar. There's so many different ones.
Yeah.
But do you use anything to kind of like remember, oh, I met with Jillian and we talked about, we both like score, and we, whatever. Do you keep notes anywhere? How do you organize yourself like that?
Well, I think everyone has to do what works for them. I've tried everything over the years, and what works for me is that I am very intentional about, like, I put a note in my online calendar that I'd want to follow up with you on a certain date. And so when that pops back up in my calendar, that's just my reminder to reach back out. If we end our call and say, our call to action is, let's circle back in 6 weeks, then I put it right on my calendar.
That is smart.
I just do it and get it off my plate.
I like that.
And because I manage a very small network, I really can stay on top of the people I want to stay on top with. It isn't that big of a deal. So, I think time is not an excuse.
Yes.
I don't buy that when people use that excuse, because to me, everything is doable.
I agree. It's like my saying is, if the why is big enough, the how takes care of itself. If you really want to do something, you can figure it out. So speaking of figuring out, all of a sudden I'm looking and I'm seeing that there's some comments. So let me pull up, and maybe some of them are mutual connections, because that was interesting. I saw you and I have a lot of wonderful mutual connections. And I first came across through Lanier Johnston, and so she raved about you. Okay, looking forward to some fun, Jillian and JoAnne, and learning how to build a network and not a database. Jeff's always great. He's so supportive. He's so supportive. I don't know what that means. Okay, we'll just move along. Yes, intentional. That's my word for 2022, and that is so true. That it's like, you have to come with the idea of what you're doing, because, we talked about before we came on today, we talked about the audio events coming to LinkedIn, and it's Clubhouse like, and it's very fun. But again, this can be a time suck. So if you have a very limited amount of time, you have to choose wisely where you're going to spend your time, right?
Yeah, that's a great word, Annette. I'm glad you're using it. I think it's terrific. I think we do need to be more intentional with and even how we improve our digital communication.
Yes.
We all can get better at that. And I think there's some very simple things you can do in terms of being intentional and being better. And I think it might sound kind of corny, but the old Maya Angelou quote about, people remember how you make them feel. And to take the time to compliment someone, more than the thumbs up and the congrats and that one-word answers. I think to take a few minutes every day and to recognize someone, I think that means a lot. I think we need to look for more commonalities amongst people and really be curious. I think we all can be more intentional about asking better questions.
Agreed.
And I think those are skills, communication skills, that anyone can learn. And I think when you do, you will reap the rewards. I
agree. And it's kind of like when you see a post and you comment, like you said, you don't want to just say, great post. You want to somehow indicate you've read it, that you have something. Like, I always envision, like, if I was in a conversation, what would I want to add to the conversation as opposed to just commenting? How can I add my 2 cents to this? And I always read the post first. I don't know how many people I'll get comments and I'll go, I don't even think they read my post.
I know.
It's very
People have to stop being in such a hurry and be willing to invest time.
Yes. Yes,
I can
absolutely.
tell the number of people that didn't even look at my profile, and I don't know.
Yes, I know. It's like a lot of people are doing like the secret word, and nobody ever reads the secret word. And you're just like, okay, well, that shows me nobody's paying any attention. So Jeff says, a good friend in the UK, Angus Grady, and Angus was talking about using the telephone last week. He says it well. Your connections don't have to add up, but they do have to count. That's a good quote, Jeff. I like that. I like that.
I like that too, Jeff. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. I might recommend, if people haven't ever read the book Friend of a Friend. Are you familiar?
I don't know
with
that one.
I don't know that one. By David Burkus. It's not new. But he brings up a couple of really good things in his book that I use all the time. And he calls, it's all about relationships, this Friend of a Friend. And, he talks about weak ties and dormant ties in the network we already have. And so how can you take advantage of the network you already have, and instead of, and stop just bringing on new connections? You have probably a great network, and to reacquaint yourself with the people that are already in your network. I'll tell you, last summer I did a campaign where I reached out to a lot of my connections that I already have without expectation. I just sent a friendly note letting them know, hey, I'm thinking about you. Hope you're having a great summer. If there's something new that you'd like me to know about you, please do let me know.
Nice.
And I got amazing response from people.
That's nice. That's nice.
It just goes back to the reconnecting with your network, the building of the relationship, the letting people know that they're seen.
Yes. And I know I like to do birthdays, and I know a lot of people are like, the birthdays, they're dumb. But I figure if people post their birthday, I like to send a personal greeting. Sometimes I'll send a voice message. Sometimes I send a video. I don't just use the LinkedIn suggestion because it's too generic, and I know they're going to be like, what good is that? So I might say something like, I'm excited to see what you're going to be doing next year. I change it for each and every person. And I'm amazed people enjoy that, because you're right. You say people's name. If I say JoAnne, it makes you feel, oh, she remembers my name. It's just something that makes us feel human beings.
Exactly. There you go. Bingo, right? If you just remember that about your digital relationships, that we're all people.
Yep. Okay, ask her about the ultimate KPI, inbound inquiries per 1,000 followers. I'm not a math person, so I never really worry about those. Do you?
Not particularly. I mean, everybody should have some kind of KPI that they can measure whether or not they're successful. When you talk about inbound inquiries per 1,000 followers, I suppose you easily could measure that. It isn't a measurement I would use particularly, because I think the ROI comes in on how do you measure that? Well, you can measure that how many people signed up for your webinar, how many people came to your live, how many people engaged with a post, how many people set up a call. I mean, there's a lot of ways to measure whatever those KPIs are, but I think it has less to do with the number of followers. I mean, that's my opinion. How about you, Gillian?
I don't really worry too much about that kind of stuff. It's like, I just feel that if I lead with valuable content, I spend time commenting on other people's posts. I'm very careful about who I connect with, who I don't connect with. And then I measure my stats. Every morning I get on LinkedIn. I look to see how many people viewed my profile, what's my number of followers, and what was my last post, in terms of engagement. And I record that because I figure if those numbers start going down, then I need to think about what's going on. But if they are steadily increasing or they're holding their own, I feel I'm doing okay. So that's good enough for me. I didn't really feel a need to do a third-party tool. I know a lot of people, they use it's gone. Shield. A lot of people use Shield and they like all the analytics. And to be honest with you, I don't even like analytics on my website. Like I don't really care about, I have Google Analytics, but same with YouTube. I don't really worry too much about the numbers, because then I think you can just start fiddling with all your content to make the numbers, tweaking the numbers. And I think at the end of the day, are you talking to people? Just set goals on how many people you want to reach out. I have a friend who, I think she has like a target of 4 or 5 coffee dates a week. That's her goal. And it's very easy because she keeps them short, sweet, helps her grow her network. It's a personal goal that she uses. I couldn't meet with that many people a week, but that's just me. But I try to at least meet with 1 or 2 people a week, people I know, people I don't know, just so I continue to make sure I can keep talking.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's all kinds of other strategies, in terms of really getting some outcomes, but building a platform, what do you want to be known for? I mean, it's all of those components as well.
Exactly.
But I think we overcomplicate some of it.
Oh, we do. We
Do you
do.
agree?
We do. I agree. And Mike is saying here, the number plummets when follower numbers get too high. And I think the one thing that I have found, that once you start to get a large number of followers, if you want to continue to respond to people in the comments, it's a lot of work. I just have to say, it's a lot of work. And I feel guilty if I ignore people. It's like I'm driven to keep commenting. If somebody comments on my stuff, I feel it's common courtesy to acknowledge them. So if you have a huge number of followers and people are commenting on your stuff, you have to remember etiquette is respond to them. And the more you have, the more time it's going to take, right?
For sure. Oh, yeah, for sure. One of the things that has always been a guidepost for me personally is I just always stay top of mind with the people I want to stay top of mind with. And where that has grown my business is I know I could tell you easily who my top referrers are. And so my referrals drive a lot of business my way. And so I'm always staying top of mind with those folks. That's key. I see Annette has another question.
She says, how about the connect and pitch? Ugh.
Yeah.
And so do you respond to those? What do you do, JoAnne, when you get that and they just slide right in with their stuff?
Yeah. So being that I feel a responsibility as a LinkedIn trainer, I almost always will comment back to those folks. And not in a nasty way, but I try to offer them some feedback on maybe why that wouldn't work.
I think that's actually very righteous. And I think that's a good thing, because if you think about it, these are teachable moments. And as a LinkedIn trainer, I
Yeah.
think you do need to set the example, because maybe they just don't know, they truly might not know.
I think that's a lot of the case. I think they don't. I had a young man who connected with me about a week ago, and he pitched me right away. And I won't even go into the details, but he didn't know. I mean, he obviously was a very young person. He was now in this sales role with this company and probably had no training, because if he had proper training and skills, he wouldn't have approached me the way he did. And so I just tried to make some nice suggestions to him on how he might improve his approach in the future. So I don't know. I'm just a believer in trying to pay it forward. And, it's all relationships, right?
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, we've actually come to the end of our 30 minutes. It goes by so fast, so
Yeah.
fast. So before we head out, there's still more comments. So we'll get to the comments afterwards. We'll type in some responses and we'll get to the comments. But is there any sort of final words, some sage advice you'd want to leave everybody with today? Sort of your number one tip for relationship building in the digital age?
Well, I think, Jillian, all I want to say is, be open. Say yes more than you say no. Be open to a conversation, because you never know where that could lead.
I love it. I love it. That's a good one. That's a good one. And relationships are relationships, whether they're on LinkedIn or off LinkedIn. And that's
Yeah.
great. That's
How
great.
about you? What advice would you give to others?
I would just sort of the do unto others as you'd have them do to you. It's like, whatever you feel is good social etiquette that you'd like people to treat you with, I always make sure I do the same. So it's like sort of be the change you want to see on LinkedIn, so to speak.
Yes.
Steal
Yes.
it from Gandhi. We can do that.
I
Okay,
agree.
well,
I agree.
yes. So we'll sign off. Thank you, JoAnne, for coming on today to talk about this. This was awesome. And everybody else, we'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Jillian.
Bye.